Hello and big welcome to all of you, colleagues and partners, to this webinar about the newly adopted General Comment 26 of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. I want to give special welcome to the Sida Civil Society program partners and children who may have joined us today. I will give you some information about the session, just some housekeeping rules I would like to draw your attention to before we start properly. If you could put your name in the chat box, the organization where you're from, it would be great. If you have questions, please use the Q&A box that will be on the side. It's written Q&A, so it's specifically for questions. The chat box, keep it for introducing yourself and for commenting or providing additional information. The session is in English, however, it is going to be interpreted in French and Spanish. So look at the globe that you see on your screen. Click to see which language you will choose. There's instructions in the chat box that probably have come up now. The session is being recorded, and the recording will be shared on the How to Child Rights YouTube channel that is hosted by the Resource Center of Save the Children, their YouTube channel. So if you want to come back to this or share with colleagues who are not able to join, you can always find the recording on that YouTube channel, which we will share a link to as well. Some children involved in the Sida Civil Society program may have joined us today to this session. So just to make sure that this webinar is safe for everybody and accessible, we have appointed a focal point for safeguarding if there are any issues. It's Karen Pilgrim, my colleague, who's monitoring the chat box and the Q&A box. And she's going to put her email address in the chat box. And also, it's not only for children, but in general, let's try to speak as slow as possible to help with the interpretation, and also avoid abbreviations. So we're sure that we don't, we allow for everybody to follow. Just to inform that this webinar is organized with support from Generation Hope campaign. There's different technical working groups of Save the Children that have been involved in planning for this webinar. The technical working group on monitoring and demanding child rights with children, for example, and the one on climate resilience and environmental sustainability. It's also organized with in collaboration with the Climate Crisis Advocacy Working Group, and it is co-sponsored by the How to Child Rights series. So before moving forward, I would like to show you what's the agenda of it today. So after this welcoming and introduction, we will hear opening remarks from Rotimi, and I will present Rotimi in a moment. We will also have a quiz to really see how much do we know about this general comment, and also to get to know who's in the room today in this call. We will use Mentimeter for that, and we will share with you the link and the code if a code is necessary. Then Constanza Martinez, our colleague from the Geneva office, will really walk us through the general comment and why is it important, what's in it for us. And I hope that we will get, you will have much more knowledge after this presentation by her. And after that, we will have an interactive session. First, we will have experience sharing in writing. We will use Mentimeter again. And then we will have experience sharing orally. And some of you have already prepared that you wanted to share, and we're very thankful for that. And then there will be also space for others to share and ask questions, etc. We will have closing remarks if we have time. But before I spend more time on this, I would like to introduce Rotimi Josiah. He's our Executive Director for Global Policy, Advocacy and Campaigns for Save the Children. So I leave the mic to you, Rotimi. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Lau. Welcome to you all, dear colleagues, partners, children and young people connected to this important space for conversation. Thanks so much for prioritizing this event, which, as we all know, is a critical event for us. This event, as Laura just said, will focus on the recent General Comment 26, which is a clear milestone on children's rights. This morning, I was privileged to discuss with Anne Skelton, the chair of the Committee on the Rights of the Child. And we were exactly talking about this general comment as a critical step in the right direction. We were talking about how Save the Children can play a critical role with our global footprint and what we are doing across the world to ensure that this instrument, which is a clear milestone, is translated into results for the children and their communities we serve. As we all know, this general comment is the first international authoritative instrument explicitly recognizing children's rights to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. And as we all know, this is a result of several years of push from children, from different actors across the world. And this is also a recognition of the fact that if we create the space for children, if we equip them, they are able to transform their worlds. They are able to really push for the right changes they need for now and for the future. So I would like to call out the campaigners and all those children and young people who really pushed hard to really help the world to have this critical instrument. As we all know, this, as I said, is a first step in the right direction. This is why this platform is so important. To first of all know more about when we talk about the General Comment 26, what are we talking about? To be equipped, to be able to ensure that the General Comment is translated into actions, into plans, into policies, into investments across countries, across member states. So what we agreed this morning with the chair of the Committee on the Rights of the Child is that Save the Children see this as a very important moment, as an opportunity to really deliver for children. So I hope as you engage in this space and learn more from this, you will not keep that for yourself. You will share that within your organization, within your community, within your country. But beyond sharing that, you will really push to ensure that the General Comment, the key aspect, principles, and recommendations in the General Comment are clearly articulated and reflected in plans and strategies across the world. So I'm looking forward to learning and hearing from you all. And I want to say that we see this General Comment as one of the key aspects of our global strategy implementation, because as we all know, the right to really enjoy a livable planet is connected to the other rights, and we need to ensure that we get it right with and for children. So I would like to encourage you all to use this opportunity to learn, to share, but most importantly, after this conversation, to ensure that you take action so that the General Comment 26 is translated into our own plan strategies for those colleagues within Save the Children. But for partners, children and young people who are part of this, also ensuring that we are using that instrument across our context and while we engage with several actors. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you and listening learning from your different experiences and how you want to take this forward. Because what we want is that we need to launch this as well in different countries. The Committee on the Right of the Child is planning the 18th of September to launch this, and we are hoping that with the global footprint of Save the Children, we will be able to do that in many countries to call the attention of all players on this critical instrument, which needs to be embedded in all we are doing across the world. So thank you so much for this opportunity to engage with you, and all the very best with the conversation. Thank you
so much, Rotimi, for these opening remarks. You really put the tone for this session. We really don't want just the session to be just a session, but really a step to take us forward in taking this general comment seriously and take it forward. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate also the point on anchoring in strategies and plans. This is without that, it's like when we say without money, you can't do anything. It's the same without anchoring in plans and strategies. It might be just ad hoc. So thank you so much for reminding us that. I will now encourage all of you to breathe deeply before I show the next the slide that will come. I wanted to. It's not coming. That's why I'm a bit. I'm sorry about that. But I will just do my best here. Just a moment. So now we will. Oh, just a moment. There's something that. We will have to, if Karen, you could just unmute and give instructions about perhaps the Mentimeter while I try to find my the right page. I'm so sorry for this.
Yes, of course. I'm putting the Mentimeter link in the chat right now. If you can open Mentimeter, either click on the link and it will take you to the Mentimeter we're using. Otherwise, if you use Mentimeter on your phone, go to menti.com and use the code that is provided in the chat. It's 68637715. Again, you can find the instructions in the chat. Please open the link to Menti. If you're using your phone, go to menti.com and use the code provided in the chat, 68637715. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Karen. So now that you have the instructions, I will ask you to respond to this first question. It's a quiz now. I mean, first we want to know who's here, and then it's a quiz about the general comment. So the first question is, in which region or country are you based? If you cannot access Mentimeter, please respond in the chat box. But otherwise, we will be waiting just a couple of seconds to see which country do you come from. Where are you based? So the Mentimeter link is in the chat box. You can click on it directly. And if you're on your phone, you will be asked to go to menti.com, and the code is 68637715. Or maybe the code
Or
has changed. I see the
yeah,
code
it seems
has
the
changed.
code has changed. Sorry, everyone.
5151289574. Apologies for that. So perhaps in the chat, if you can put that, Karen, 51289574. Now we understand why not many people have been able to join. And then I will also give you the link, the right link as well. It seems that I've had so there's colleagues from several countries. Karen, are you able to access just to share the new link? It seems that I have, or we'll figure it out. Don't worry. Let me just, we have people from Sweden, Canada, Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, Nicaragua. Welcome, everybody. So the second question is, if you are a partner of Save the Children, please tell us where you are based. So we have a few partners from Save the Children. And again, if you cannot access this, the Mentimeter, please write in the chat box. The next question is, what do you focus on in your role? Do you work on climate change and environment, on child rights governance, on equality, inclusion, on child participation, on health, education, protection, or other? You can choose several of those if you work on several issues. It's great to see that many of you work on education and protection, on health as well, child participation, inclusion. And of course, climate change and environment and child rights governance. And the other, please put in the chat box, what do you work on? It will be really interesting to know. So now it's the quiz part. What is a general comment? Is it a general document explaining a right? Is it an advisory opinion about a human rights situation? Is it an authoritative interpretation of states' human rights obligations? Or is it an academic paper commenting issues affecting children? Correct. It's an authoritative interpretation of states' human rights obligations. It says it's general and comment. It's not general and it's not a comment. So that's the, the tricky part of this question. The next question is, is the correct or incorrect answer. General comment number 26 recognizes children's right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. Is this correct or incorrect? It is correct. Next question. General comment 26 focuses on obligations under the Paris Agreement on climate change. Is this correct or incorrect? This was quite close. 9 of you said it's correct and 10 says incorrect. It is incorrect, and you will know more in the next session. Question 4. General comment 26 covers a range of children's rights impacted by climate change and environmental degradation. Is this correct or incorrect? It is correct. Now, I cannot see the chat box if more of you are engaging in the chat box, but please feel free to respond in the chat box as well, because I see not many of you have been able to join. Next question. General comment 26 includes references to responsibilities of the private sector. Is it correct or incorrect? It's correct. And this question is almost the last question. General comment 26 was written by the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and Climate Change. Is this correct or incorrect? The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and Climate Change. Did he write this general comment? Ah, wow, it is equal. It is incorrect. It is the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child that wrote this general comment. It's a group of experts that Connie will speak more about. And this is the last question. General comment 26 was developed with input from 16,331 children from 121 countries. Is this correct or incorrect? It is correct. Thank you so much for taking the time to respond. And now, before I spend more time on this, and I'm sorry about the technical part of this, the problem technical, I will just give the floor now to Connie Constanza Martinez, our colleague from the Geneva office, who has been leading our inputs to this process for about a year now. Connie, over to you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. And just to say, do not worry if you didn't have all the answers correct. We're all learning together about this new document. Just to check, is everybody hearing me well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, because we have interpretation, so I will try to speak slowly. So this document is called a general comment. The title and the name of the document is very strange because it's not general and it's not a comment. It's actually an interpretation that the committee gives to the Convention on the Rights of the Child in light of emerging issues like environmental degradation. The committee is composed of 18 experts covering all the regions, and there is a picture of all the experts. And if you see the lady, the tall lady, the blonde lady, she is the chair of the committee. Her name is Anne Skelton. And this is the person with whom Rotimi had the meeting this morning, as he mentioned in his opening remarks. So this is the committee that issues these documents to explain some aspects of the convention. And this one is the 26th one. So there are now 26 of these documents explaining some of the issues that the governments need to take into account to implement the convention. Next slide, please. So as Rotimi mentioned, because of the big movement that children have taken forward around the world, and because of the pressure received by the international community by these children, the committee decided in October 2021 to release this general comment on environmental issues. And because the experts of the committee are not necessarily knowledgeable about all aspects of child rights, including environment, they launched a huge consultation among different countries of the world and children. Save the Children has helped with these consultations, facilitating the participation of children and also submitting comments itself for the development of the first draft that was released in November 2022. And that gave us a window from November to February 2023 to comments to the first draft, where we also once again, Save the Children participated in this submission of comments as a standalone organization, but also in a joint submission with the working group of child rights and environment under the Child Rights Connect. So with all this process, the committee had the right elements to release the final text that we now have in front of us and that will be officially launched in the 18th of September, as Rotimi mentioned. Next slide, please. Why is this document important? First of all, because it is the first document, it's the first international instrument that explicitly recognizes the children's right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. And this comes right after, as you know, the UN General Assembly resolution, where the international community recognizes the universal human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. So apart from all the rights listed in the convention, this is a new right that emerges, even though it is not in the very text of the convention adopted already by states in the early 80s. It's also a very important document because it describes very clearly the impact that climate change and environmental degradation has on absolutely all children's rights. And in that sense, it reinterprets how governments, states, and everybody else needs to implement the convention in a different way, this time taking into account all the environmental dimension of each of these rights. So the general comment becomes a ruler against which governments are going to be measured and evaluated and see if they're in compliance with the convention or not. And this makes this general comment a very important document that we all need to take into account today. Next slide, please. So with such a name, general comment it doesn't give you much appetite to actually read it. So I thought I would just show you the outline to ease your way into the document so that you do have a look at it. So if you look at the outline, the document is divided into 5 different sections. The first is an introduction and explaining even how the committee decided to do this document and recognizing that the children's movement around the world was the main factor that pushed the committee to do this. It also recognizes future generations as also the children to come that will be impacted with the actions we take today. The second section is a long section describing each of the rights included in the text of the convention and describing how environmental degradation and climate change impacts the implementation of these rights and what are the measures that governments need to put in place to be in compliance with the convention. The third section, again, recognizes explicitly the right to a clean and healthy environment for children. And the fourth goes into more detail on what the governments have to do to actually implement the convention in light of the new context where we have grave environmental degradation and climate change. And then there is a specific section on climate change, as this general comment focuses on environmental degradation, but also more specifically on climate change issues, and goes into the main elements of climate change like mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage. Next slide, please. When I say that this general comment reinterprets the convention, sometimes it is not very clear, so I thought I would share with you an example. Article 6 relates to right to life, for example, just to show you how this is reinterpreted. And it says that state parties shall ensure to maximum extent possible the survival and development of the child. So now with a general comment, specifically paragraph 21, for example, and the whole section on the right to life, is just telling states that now when they implement the convention, they need to take into action, they need to take action to protect the environment, because this constitutes ensuring to the maximum extent the survival of children. So as you can see, when the states will be asked by the committee if they're actually implementing Article 6, they will have to prove to the committee that they are also taking action to protect the environment, because this is intimately related to the survival of children. If we go to the next slide, there is another example on the right to health. Article 24 of the Convention describes what constitutes right to health, and asks governments to establish all the necessary measures for children to enjoy the highest attainable standard. So now, for example, when governments establish or develop a social security scheme and establishes also social protection floors, they will have to take into account the response to environmental shocks and all the harms produced by climate change. So these are two examples of how the convention needs to be read differently now, how this general comment actually brings into the convention all the environmental aspects to it that it didn't exist at the time when the convention was adopted in the early 80s. If you go into the text, you will find many more examples than these ones. For example, the establishment of green spaces for children to ensure to just like enhance their mental health and completely comply with the right to leisure. But you will find many other examples on how to reread the convention in light of this new general comment. Next slide, please. So what does this document bring to us? Rotimi says, that this is a new way, a new roadmap, a new instrument that puts us in a situation where we have to revisit our advocacy work, campaign, and communications to make sure that it is known by all the governments and by all different stakeholders of society. We need to revisit also our programs to ensure that we also touch on the different sectors that are affected by climate change and environmental degradations, like health and nutrition, displacement, and so on. And also we have to look into our accountability work to ensure that we are included some of the provisions of the general comment. So our challenge today is to help the committee so that this general comment is known everywhere as much as possible by children themselves, to empower them even further, to continue the movement for a planet where we address the triple planetary crisis. And this is what we're doing today in this webinar. We want to hear from you how we're going to make this general comment reality at the national regional level. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Connie, for giving us an insight, a much deeper dive into the general comment. I hope all of you really realize that there is content in this general comment for all of us. It covers so much child rights issues. It goes from health to protection to the role of the private sector. It also covers, just to add, even those of you who work with development cooperation, work with institutional donors, climate finance, etc. There's so much in it for all of us, and we don't need to read it from beginning to end in order to use it. So thank you so very much, Connie. I wanted to, I know that there was this last slide that you wanted to share as well, to say a word about how we're actually bringing it into the organization through Generation Hope, COP28, and various technical working groups work. And that's something that we are very happy that we're doing. And also, Connie, that you also, together with a partner in the Sida Civil Society program, CRC Asia, are co-leading Child Rights Connect's working group on child rights and the environment, which is also very important to know that externally we're also working on coordinated efforts on children's rights and the environment, and on the launch and the implementation of General Comment 26. So the next part is about what are you planning to do? Before I go into that, I wanted to ask if there are any questions that have come up in the Q&A, or any burning questions that you've seen, Karen, now, since you're monitoring the Q&A box?
No questions so far.
Okay, colleagues, don't hesitate to raise any questions you may have on content, on process, on whatever you think you need more information about in the question and answers box or in the chat box. So we will do our best to respond. Now I will open the interactive session. I will start with a Mentimeter question for all of you. Again, Karen will share the correct link this time to the Mentimeter question. And those of you who are asked to add a code when going to menti.com, you can put the code 512-89574. 512-89574. I want to tell you that you don't have to write in English, since this session is being interpreted to French and Spanish. It's also from French and Spanish to English. Feel free to write in the language that you want in the coming session, but also to speak in the language that you want. And we will follow. Don't worry about that. So the question that will be raised now to you, and where we really ask you kindly to type down how are you planning to use General Comment 26 in your work? Every activity counts. Is it dissemination, awareness raising, advocacy, programming, communications related? Be specific. And also, if you can mention the country you come from, it would be great. So we also can use that as we document. After these webinars that we've had today, we will be documenting all the activities that colleagues and partners have been raising, so which we hope we can share with you. So if you can, when you write, also put which country you come from and try to be specific. It's better to be specific to inspire each other on what activities we can be doing. So I now open this question on Mentimeter. If you have Mentimeter open, you will see this question and you will be able to enter as many responses as you like. So take your time. The question is, how are you planning to use General Comment 26 in your work? I will give you a couple of minutes. thanks to all of you who already started filling in. Just a reminder for those of you who have problems joining Mentimeter, you can also write in the chat box. I see that some of you have mentioned the project design of Green Climate Fund projects. That's super interesting, and it's the first time I see it today. Reference it briefly in internal position paper on the just transition. I can also know who is behind this, I can guess. It's really interesting to see also the implementation of Generation Hope campaign, and we will hear more about that actually today as well. Colleagues from Uganda, thank you for sharing that. I see advocacy, incidencia, difusión amplia, all the dissemination and advocacy work. Please be more specific if you have specific ideas, even if you're not doing it. What do you think you could be doing? Would be also interesting to share here.
Laura?
Yes?
No, just to say that it would be very interesting for us if people write where they come from, their office, so we know who is putting this idea, because we're going to be collecting this information.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's important that we know who is planning to do incidencia and disseminación. Gracias.
Thank you, Connie, for the reminder. It's super useful to know where is this plan. In Sweden, I see framing a political campaign and member meetings around climate action with rights-based perspective rooted in the general comment. Please continue adding. I would give it a minute or so. There's activities on dissemination with children and youth, incorporating the general comment in climate advocacy work, sharing this information with our networks, Connie, feel free to come in as well if you see something that attracts your attention. In Côte d'Ivoire, is the development of tools for children for the dissemination of the General Comment 26 and doing radio programs to teach about General Comment 26. Thank you so much.
I see Guatemala putting in the chat box about participating in the climate change assembly at national level to promote the general comment, but also Peru saying that there will be a lot of communications material, digital and printed, which is very important, the communication and dissemination of the general comment.
Great, thank you. And I also see colleagues from Bangladesh to include a new project design. In Salvador, la difusión interna y externa, to disseminate this information internally and externally. And just the Netherlands, you will use the parliamentary elections for this. And I see that you're referring to another submission. I think this is great. And Spain, thank you so much, all of you. We will really look at this in much more detail. And thank you also, those of you from Niger, Mali, Burkina.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for adding all this information, and let's continue. Let's see if there will be time to also share orally this information. So I just wanted to start to call in some colleagues who need to leave quite soon. So perhaps I can ask Ida, our colleague from Norway. Ida, if you can also present yourself, it will be super useful. And all of you who will be called in, please present yourself, so it will save us time and you will present yourself much better than I would. Thank you so much. Ida, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Could you please put up the slide again? Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Ida Stromso. I work for Save Norway as a climate advocacy advisor, but I also co-chair the global climate advocacy work together with Jack Wakefield for SCI. Today I'm going to mention a bit about our plans in Norway. It's very inspiring to see that so many of you have plans for the general comments already. I'm sure it's going to be quite different in different contexts, as it always is with climate advocacy across both high and low income countries, but hope to be able to share an example of what you can do in high income countries here. So throughout the year, we have started to do hearings in Parliament or collaborating with different parties of Parliament to put the Minister of Petroleum up in both for written questions, but also oral hearings. In Norway, several of the rights in the Convention of the Rights of the Child are embedded in the Constitution. So therefore, we have questioned how Norwegian oil production is actually respecting and fulfilling children's rights and the best interests of the child as per the Norwegian Constitution. So this we have done several times. Expectedly, we have received very vague answers from the minister, as they haven't really thought about this much before. It's our assumption. But now that the General Comment 26 is out and we have new conclusions on the connection between children's rights and also inaction when it comes to climate policy, we're planning to bring this up again with the Minister of Petroleum and ask him how he believes that they are following the General Comment in Norwegian oil production. We will also have an op-ed or a chronicle coming from our CEO to try to explain the General Comment a bit more to both the general public, but also other organizations and politicians. And then maybe the biggest event that we're focusing on is a roundtable event. For quite a long time, we have collaborated quite a lot with the Ombudsperson for Children here in Norway, and also the Norwegian Human Rights Institution to try to shed light on the connection between child rights and climate and environment. So together with them, we will host a roundtable with bureaucrats from the Ministry of Petroleum, Ministry of Climate and Environment, of Children and Families, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also from the Norwegian Development Agency, NORAD, and the Norwegian Environment Agency. And the objective of this roundtable will be to teach bureaucrats about their constitutional obligations to protect child rights in the context of the climate crisis and our environmental issues, and also to teach them about the General Comment 26 and how this can be a tool that can support them in their work to adhere to their constitutional obligations. We're very lucky to have Kirsten Sandberg, the former chair of the Committee on the Rights of the Child. She lives in Norway and is Norwegian, so she's quite close by, and we were lucky to have her join our roundtable. In addition, we're going to have interventions from the Sami people and also from Save Norway and the two other organizers. I could also just mention that we are planning to inform our UNFCCC or the COP delegation about the release of the General Comments to start a dialogue with them on how they can use this document and in general use it in all our political submissions on climate, on the state budget and throughout the year. So I'll leave it to that and let other speakers get some time as well. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Ida. Colleagues, you see how much can be done also in high-income countries and in collaboration with the Ombudsman for Children, even former committee members. There's so much we can do, and it's really interesting to target the petroleum also sector. So I leave you to that to consider in your future actions as well. I will now call on Jack Wakefield to share his Jack, you're also co-leading the Climate Crisis Advocacy Working Group of Save the Children and Climate Crisis Advocacy generally in Save the Children. And you're going to talk about the global advocacy.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. As Laura was saying, my name's Jack, and I'm the Global Policy and Advocacy Lead on climate change at Save the Children International. And yeah, really pleased to be here speaking at this fantastic event today. I think the first thing I've reflected on with the general comment is it really gives us cause to be hopeful. And that over the past few years, colleagues here, along with young people and many others across the globe, have been successful in securing some really key tools to help catalyse action at a national level and reinforce that central message that the climate crisis is at its heart a child rights crisis. So as authoritative guidance for states, this is a really critical document that we can use to push for policy coherence between human rights treaties, the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. And that obviously includes the Human Rights Council resolution on realising the rights of the child through a healthy environment and the recent UN General Assembly resolution on the right to a healthy environment. So what this all means is we now have a fundamental reference point to strengthen our arguments on the climate crisis, anchoring them further in the Convention of the Rights of the Child, and to support children with their own campaigns and advocacy to utilise it. So just a few weeks ago, we saw a landmark decision in the US where a group of children and youth aged 5 to 22 won their case against the state of Montana by arguing that by enacting pro-fossil fuel policies, state officials violated their constitutional rights to a healthy environment. And obviously the addition of the general comment really further bolsters the ability of young people to hold their governments to meaningful account. And we really hope to see many more examples like this of children's success in the defense of their rights. When it comes to COP28, we as the child rights community should really be banging the drum loud and clear for this general comment, really be looking to integrate it into our engagement with policymakers in events, pushing for recognition in UNFCCC processes, and reinforcing the role it can play in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. On our side, we're going to be joining an event with Slovenia and the UN Environmental Programme at the COP, and that's going to be around next steps on the right to a healthy environment, and we're really going to be looking to ensure that the general comment is a key element of that conversation. And we're also working with a wider group of child rights partners on another event at COP dedicated to the general comment. And then we're also obviously hoping to see it covered in the regional climate weeks as well. I'll wrap it up there. It's just a very quick intervention because I know we've got a lot of speakers and want to save time, particularly for those national level colleagues. So I just want to say thanks again to Connie and Laura and Karen for putting on a great event, and really looking forward to seeing the positive change this general comment can help affect.
Thank you so much, Jack, for your reflections and plans, and really great to see how relevant this general comment will be and is already. First, it strengthens our already existing arguments and work, but also it will make sense for the UNFCCC, the SDGs, the upcoming COP28. I think many of us in this call will be interested to really also look at how that can really be taken forward in climate-related decision-making processes. The next speaker I have on my list is Nsama from Zambia. Nsama, are you in the room today? Nsama Musonda Cairns, she's Executive Director of Care for Nature Zambia. Just checking if you are here. If Sama is not here, I will ask peut-être Gauthier from Côte d'Ivoire. Est-ce que vous êtes là? Are you here?
Oui, bonjour Laura, bonjour à tous et à toutes. Je suis bien là et aussi très heureux de participer à cet événement en tant que panéliste pour pouvoir partager.
It's a great pleasure to be able to be in this webinar. And as a panelist, It's a great chance to be able to share with you what
could you access the French
Cote d'Ivoire has done.
French to English so that you can follow?
If you'd like, you can switch to French or to English. It takes a little bit of time when interpretation has to switch or when we need to switch interpretation channels. Thank you very much. So let me know when I can start. I think that you can start. Thank you, Akir. Thank you. Yes, you can start. Thank you so much for this invitation and this great honor that you are granting me in our country office in Cote d'Ivoire and myself personally. I would like to present a little bit about what Cote d'Ivoire has been able to do in topics related to the environment and climate change. We have launched a program about children's rights, the private sector, and Cote d'Ivoire is following the CSO program. So what we have done in Cote d'Ivoire and what we have really been able to work on, starting from our contributions in the review of the environment code. We're working on the mining code as well. And since we got here, since 2017, 2021, we have worked on this program. We have developed initiatives in Cote d'Ivoire in that sense. So we have been strengthening capacities, and this has allowed us to identify the real impact about the environment and about the rights. So after this, we have also seen few participation of children in the initiatives and the decision-making processes in terms of the environment. And nowadays, we have a whole series of argumentation to be able to bring in the local authorities and state actors to really integrate children in this process. To be able to do so, we have supported ourselves in companies including children and also Resolution 4530 to be able to respond to the rights of children in terms of a healthy environment. With all these activities, we have been able to see that our observations and recommendations have been integrated in the inclusion of the Environment Code. And right now we are contributing to the review of the Mining Code. We have worked and we have done a series of activities to act in front of the Environment Agency in Cote d'Ivoire so that Cote d'Ivoire respects the environment and they can adhere to the environmental and social pact that we already have and that we have moved forward on. And from September 11th to 15th in Grand Bassam, we will be discussing the application of the new mining code and other documents that are related to the preservation and protection of the environment. What we expect to do, what we hope to do, we would like to broaden our program agenda, focusing especially on what has to do with the environment. We have worked with Yama, with the OG26 and OG20 and 16, and we will be taking the state actors so that they can be more sensitive in these environmental topics. We have developed a plan, a dissemination plan in which we include tools that are really accessible for children, that they can really use them as well. And we would like to reinforce the capacities of the partners and the organizations that include children and promote communications as well. The general observation, General Comment 26 will allow us to integrate it into the different initiatives that we will be carrying out. And we will also be able to communicate it in radio transmissions and transmissions of other types, such as, for example, June 5th of the World, the Day of the Environment, the Day Against Deforestation, November 20th, which is the Day of the Industrialization in Africa, and also the Day of Children. Côte d'Ivoire, then, this is the small contribution that we wanted to share with you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Gucci. That has been very interesting. Everything that you have been sharing with us. So we will now hand it over to interpretation for English.
It's really interesting what he just shared with us. I'm sure you agree, both the influence of different laws, environmental code he mentioned, and the mining code of Ivory Coast, how they're planning to use, or they're already using child rights arguments, and now the General Comment 26 will help them more in even influencing this legislation. In the child rights and business work they're doing, they're also using both General Comment 16, which talks about the private sector, responsibility of state toward the private sector, but also General Comment 26. So both of them are relevant for the colleagues in the Ivory Coast office. I think it's also interesting to think about these commemoration days and how General Comment 26 can be useful for that. So I'm noting those things and how you want to integrate, use General Comment, since it relates to many areas of advocacy, how you also plan to use it in your advocacy across the theme. So thank you so much, Gauthier. I would like to give now the floor to our colleague from Generation Hall, Goksu. Goksu, are you there? Merci.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Göksu. I work as a senior global campaigner at SEI and working on Generation Hope. Generation Hope is our flagship campaign where we campaign for and with children. We call governments and organizations to tackle the impact of climate crisis or interconnected crisis of climate and inequality. And I think it's a document for our campaign. It says that we are on the right track. We started our campaign by building our knowledge and expertise by listening more We had conducted what we call child hearings in 46 countries, and we heard from more than 58,000 children and their demands. So it's like the core of our campaign is hearing from children, and not just hearing, not just bringing their voices to necessary spaces and decision makers, but actually campaigning with them and building their capacity. And it's what GC26 also is calling for. It's supporting children's participation in decision-making processes. And we were able to secure some seats in the table for children already. And it's a great document for us to push for more. And in the campaign, we're talking about disrupting systematic blockers that hinders the progress in climate crisis and its impact on children. It also, GC26 also talks about the systemic problems like economic norms, inequality, and some discriminatory policies. So I think it's a great roadmap as stated. And as very, very well put by Rotimi, it's a great tool for us to translate our asks into actions. Now we have this internationally binding document. Policymakers and decision makers will have to hear from us. And we have this great opportunity to bring children's perspective into monitoring progress on GC26. We have this document, Push for More, and I think it will bring us, like, open us great doors. Yeah, and I want to leave it here because I know time is flying, and we have colleagues who are actually bringing GC26 and Generation Hope together, so we can hear from their experience and how they bring those together practically. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Göksu, for your intervention. I think it's a good reminder to see that when we started working on General Comment 26, the Generation Hope work was already there, started. So great to see that we could connect the dots, really profit from the reach of Generation Hope with all these children, to bring the General Comment with us to these children. And also now that it's out, how can it inform the the Generation Hope campaign? So it's wonderful to see, and I think it's also inspiring for the sector to see how policy documents that guides our state are also integrated in everything we do, so that whatever we do is really thinking of the sustainability of our actions, which are the idea is that we're not the ones who solve everything alone, but we need to hold the states to make what they're supposed to do for children. The point I raised is the work with the children, which is, we will give the floor to our colleague from Peru. Are you here, Richard, to give us details about your work on Generation Hope, on child rights and environment, and linking specifically to General Comment 26? Are you here? You're here. Okay, over to you. Can you unmute? Is it working for you? You cannot unmute. Okay. Perhaps we can help you. Just a moment. Just a question, perhaps. Richard, did you get a link specifically for this session from my colleague June Leo? Just as we wait maybe for this to work, Richard. Oh, the Zoom link from the Teams. No, so you received an email with a specific Zoom link for you. If you can access, go back to your email and access with that link, you will be able to speak. So if you don't mind, in the meantime, I will ask maybe Roberto and Maria Gracia from the regional office to unmute and share if it's possible. And then Richard, we can give you the floor after they have spoken. I hope it's okay.
Hola. Hola.
Hello.
Maria Gracia, are you able to unmute? Yeah, great. So you will speak in Spanish, just so everybody knows, so they can go to the interpretation room for Spanish, English.
Hola. Qué
Hello.
genial.
It's wonderful to have these types of sessions in which we can all express ourselves in our native language. So from our organization, we have been working on the communication of General Comment 26. We would like to organize an event taking advantage of this moment, which is a historical moment in the framework of child rights, and the fact also that there are 3 members of the Committee of Human Rights, of Children's Rights, who are from the region. They're Latin, and we believe that it would be important to be able to bring children to these experts who have been building this general comment. Additionally, one of our partner organizations has facilitated the participation of children in a global group of children who are advisors for General Comment 26 that was formed by the committee. So we think that this is a good umbrella to be able to start including the General Comment into the region. We also want to integrate the General Comment with advocacy actions and strategic litigation that we're carrying out in the region. When we talk about advocacy, we are going to work in the Climate Week for Latin America at the end of October, in which we are requesting a parallel event to be able to cover from an intergenerational focus the repercussions that climate effects or climate crisis is having on human rights, specifically on those of children, young people, and adolescents. And in the strategic litigation sense, we're facilitating work with a consultant opinion with the states of Chile and Colombia in the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. And obviously, the general comment represents a great support, legal and judicial support, to be able to interpret the obligations that the states have in terms of the environmental rights of children. And additionally, that tie that I think Jack was mentioning earlier on, which is the importance of the elements that already exist, such as the Escazú Agreement and the environmental agreement of the region, Latin America and the Caribbean, and it is important to go back to it. And the third element, not least important, is the empowering and campaign. So to give voice to children so that they can be the ones also who move the General Comment 26. This tie also with Generation Hope and how we can integrate the partners, the country offices, and all of us working in pro of local actions to be able to provide more localized responses in terms of what we are working on. I think it's an important milestone that we have. And this topic has been very prioritized by children, especially because defending environmental rights in Latin America is the best region to do so. So it's something that really interests young people. And without a doubt, we will be carrying out local actions such as the ones that Richard will also mention that will be facilitated from the Peru office as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Roberto, for sharing. I find it also very inspiring to hear your plans on the regional level, including the use of General Comment 26 in the amicus curiae submission. So all that has to do with strategic litigation, as well as using the opportunity of, for example, climate weeks to really raise this issue. Whenever we talk about children's rights in relation to the environment or climate change, we also think General Comment 26 and really try to really strengthen our arguments and our policy coherence that Jack has mentioned earlier. I wonder if Richard, you have been able to solve the issue. You got the link, Richard? Okay, great. Can you try to unmute and see and also show yourself? Aha, you're asked for an ID. So in the same email, there might be an ID. There's a code in the same email. In the meanwhile, I'm sorry to speak technical just now. Just Juan, I see you are on the meeting. Would it be possible to spotlight the speakers just so we can make sure to see the one who's speaking? So
hello. Here I am.
Yes.
Here I am.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Just to
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. And so Juan, I'm just saying if it's possible to take away the spotlight from me when I'm not speaking, and just so that we see our colleagues. Thank you so much. And Richard, great to see you now. And
Great.
Thank you so much for joining. And we look forward to listening what your plans are, what your work is in Peru. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much, colleagues. I'm sorry for this little problem here, but it is solved. Right now, I'm Richard from Peru. Here I am with Antonella, my partner. We do the advocacy in Save the Children Peru. First of all, we have a very interesting context here in Peru. I don't know if you are well aware of the situation, but we are in the middle of three crises. One is a political crisis. We have a new president since December of last year, and there have been many strikes and like marches, like the population, the people is striking against the president. We have many people arrested, many people killed also. So the government is under a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny. And also we have this climate crisis. We are having the El Nino, the phenomenon that carries a lot of disasters, natural disasters like rain, like floods, and many people are not having access to food. And that's the third crisis. The prices of the food and many things are going up, very up. So we are in like a very special context. And in this context, we're like creating these campaigns and these activities about climate change and children. Here in Peru, we have a very interesting group of children from all ages, from all origins. We have children from the coast, from the highlands, from the jungle, from the Amazon, and they are very interested and very eager to talk about climate change. Not specifically about climate change or the environment, but many things that are around this, like the access to food security, the access to rest, to sport, that is very important for them, the access to a school. In this phenomenon del Niño, we are having many issues with the possibility to go to school. Many schools have been damaged. The access to health is also in danger. So we have many things here in Peru. In our Generation Hope campaign, we are preparing, we have a special place for this General Comment 26. We have been expecting this General Comment 26. We had Luis Pedernera, the Vice President of the Committee of the Children Right of UN last month here in Lima, Peru. He talked about the importance of this General Comment. As you know, one of the children who was part of the committee, special committee, who make or advised the making of this General Comment was a Peruvian girl, Esmeralda, who is 16, and who is very close to our activities. We are hoping that the spotlight could be in her and in the children who are moving forward this General Comment. No? So for this, we have like three specific actions planned in Peru with all the context that we've talked about. And we're planning to, first of all, try to translate the meaning of the General Comment to the public opinion, especially, first of all, and most important, to the children and to the decision makers. No? I'm going to start with them. The decision makers in Peru are very kind. They are very very straightforward, but they have many issues because we are talking about a government who have many things to do, is under a lot of pressure and doesn't have enough budget to do things. So for example, we do know that there is no budget for them to work with the General Comment. So we are going to help them to, first of all, get the General Comment. We are going to select the most important quotes for the General Comment. We already read the General Comment. We have like 120 paragraphs of content, a very important content of the General Comment, but we're going to select the most important, and we're going to take them to make graphic pieces and like a campaign to let them know that it is just not a General Comment about climate change, that you may know that it talks about education or health or the right of life. No, it talks about more things. For example, the right to participation. The right to participation is a milestone in the Save the Children Peruvian office. We are making the Generation Hope campaign around this right of participation. So we're going to highlight this special right and the special content about the right of participation and the right to be heard. So this content could get to the public, the decision makers and the public officers. Now we're going to make a snapshot. That is an instrument that have worked well in Peru. We're going to share this in a digital way, and we are going to make them also in paper. No, we do know that we are talking about climate change and saving trees, but in Peru, in the country that doesn't have enough internet connection, we don't have a good connection even in the capital in Lima, and we do not have internet at all in some towns and in some regions of Peru. So it's very important to get this snapshot and these quotes on paper for some schools, for some authorities, even local authorities. We also want to work with them. We're going to prepare like like a workshop with these authorities, local, regional, and authorities from the main government, so we could talk about the general comment. Now, there are two challenges, and I'm finishing here with my presentation. There are two challenges with this general comment. First of all, get them to know the content, all the things that this general comment says about the rights of the children. But the other challenge is going to be how we talk about the thing that it's maybe our main problem, to talk about how binding is the general comment. As a lawyer, I'm also a lawyer. We have many discussions about how binding is this general comment. The convention is binding. You have to comply it. But that there are questions. There's a legal discussion about if you have to comply with the general comment. As a lawyer, I have arguments. I have my opinion that it is binding. Now we have to convince the government. Now we have to convince the government about how binding is this general comment, and we have to do for this advocacy. So that's our main challenge. We are hoping to discuss this special thing about the binding of the general comment with you, our colleagues, and we're hoping to learn from you how in other countries you are going to do the advocacy for this general comment. You have been very kind with your previous presentation, so we have learned a lot in this meeting. And for all the general campaign, the Generation Hope campaign, from here to December at least, that we have these special events with the SDG Summit in a couple of weeks, and with the COP in a couple of months. We're going to have a Peruvian delegation there. We're hoping to meet you guys and learn from and keep learning from you. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry again for the problems with the connection.
Oh, thank you so much, Richard. This was full of information and reflections that are very useful for all of us. On your last question, perhaps I can start with that. How binding is it? It is an authoritative guidance, right? It is to complement what's in the convention. As such, it is not a treaty. All states did not come around it and sign it again. It was developed by this expert committee that states have actually agreed they should exist, and they should be monitoring the implementation of the convention and looking at states' reports and civil society reports on a regular basis to see how far and how are states implementing the convention. So as a lawyer myself, I think my reasoning is, yes, it is not a legally binding instrument. However, it does relate to the convention, and it is developed by a treaty body, it's called, which is the Committee on the Rights of the Child, that actually states have agreed to have in existence. And as such, they need to trust that body who interprets the convention in light of new issues coming up. This issue is climate change and the environment. And children have been asking for it. So I think that could be one argument when we speak to states. Another thing, I don't know how the context is in Peru is, but like in Sweden, let's say my colleagues from Sweden are in the call. We have, the convention has been incorporated into national law. It's a law in Sweden. And to interpret the convention, they have taken into account all the general comments of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which are part of kind of the explanatory fold file that has all the interpretation. If they question how should we interpret X and Y article, they will be looking at general comments. So I would see the general comment 26 will also come to become part of that file. And so in all these countries where the convention is either a law or that it's directly applicable in courts, that the courts can directly use relate to the convention, then those general comments would be very informative. So let's continue discussing that. But I think for us as civil society, there is a big risk, like any other UN document, the general comments, concluding observations that our states receive when as recommendations when they have been reviewed by, for example, the Committee on the Rights of the Child. Many documents that come out, if we don't use them and know about them, they are useless. Even treaties. So I think the challenge for us is to really not be scared of these documents and to really look into them use word search in the document. What is it you're working on? What do you need to get in terms of arguments? That would help you make the and a government representative around that. Just because we don't have much space, unless Connie, you wanted to add something here, I could also react to other points. Connie?
I perhaps want to say a couple of points from the related to some of the questions that some colleagues made in the session we had in the morning. Somebody asked about what is if this document could actually be used for litigation and particularly on climate change, and I said that absolutely yes. This can be brought to court as interpretation, authoritative interpretation of the convention as per September 2023, and also making sure that the bit on climate change is not that everything related to climate change is just in the last section of the general comment. All the principles, is true what law says, that we could do some word search and look at where our health issues are related, or migration, or indigenous peoples, but we have to take into account also that the whole document applies to there are like principles in there that need to be applied to every issue. And there are things that are really strong, like the fact that what the general comment is saying very clearly is that non-action in terms of environmental protection or, for example, CO2 emissions constitute violation of child rights. So this is very strong, and you will see that there are some bits that has very strong language. And this is where we have to push our advocacy. Like Richard says, it is soft law. If governments don't want to comply with it, they won't comply. But this is why our responsibility as Save the Children is mobilizing public opinion, mobilizing the population in the countries where we work, and particularly children. And just also to say before we close is that if you're interested in hearing experiences and initiatives of other countries outside the ones that are participating here, do not hesitate to listen to our the recording of the morning session where we had some countries from Asia and other regions in different time zones.
Thank you, Connie. I knew that I needed you to intervene to complement what I'm saying. To build on that, there is a part that also in the general comment talks about the obligation of state to disseminate and translate this general comment, among other things, which often we want to do ourselves, but actually it's their responsibility. Just to say that, just to close this session, last thing on Richard, you mentioned the budgeting, the importance of budgeting. It's also very interesting to check in the general comment what is said about that. And unfortunately, I'm not able to comment on all the wonderful interventions in the chat box I see from Bolivia and from other colleagues. So thank you so much for all your active participation. Thank you for listening. I hope you feel you've learned something today. I hope you feel inspired by each other's experience so that you really can take this forward. We don't want this document to stay another UN document that stays on the shelf. So we really need to help each other to be creative in ways of using this general comment and hold states to account for children's rights. So as Connie said, there is a video from the morning, and this video today that will be recorded and available on the How to Child Rights YouTube channel. Karen, the link in the chat box with you. Check the general comment. You will have also the link shared with you today. We will compile all what has been shared with us so that you can also get inspired by what we will be documenting. we're looking at having a guidance on how to use this general comment, how civil society can make use, and all the info provided today will be very helpful. And that's it. Thank you so very much. Take care, and to be continued. Bye. Thank you all for panelists and everybody who's supporting also behind the scenes, the interpreters and everybody. Rotimi, thank you so much for joining us and lifting this session with your presence, and thank you all. Thank you, Juan. Yeah.
Gracias.
Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Muchas
Muchas
gracias.
gracias a
Merci
todos.
beaucoup.
Thank you.